what is there a characteristic that you think, or it could be a list or whatever, but that you think that all men should intentionally seek to grow and to develop, and what might that characteristic be if you have something off the top of your head?
Specifically men?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that I'm seeing, especially in our culture, is just a desensitizing of men being manly, being true men, almost in a sense of demonizing manly behaviors or things that are distinctly masculine as being wrong.
Right.
And that is a shift in culture that I think is going to be devastating to future men. And I have 3 boys of my own, and this is something I fear for them, is because they have to see the example of true biblical manhood, which is not necessarily being the stoic, never cry type of, rough and gruff type of manhood that sometimes was wrongly painted in, the 50s or 60s or something of that nature, that men never cry, that kind of thing. But instead of understanding that true men are strong, are leaders, can express opinions, can show love, can serve. And so the feminizing of our culture, so to speak, where things that men do that are distinctly masculine are seen as abuses, or as seen as just as I'm trying to think of the right word, as almost a disease to culture, like it becomes something looked down upon by society at every front. That concerns me, and I think that there has to be men who are willing to stand up to be men, to say, yes, even men can speak to gender issues. Mm-hmm. Yes, even white men can speak to racial issues.
Right.
It's like we have become so fearful about talking about anything that has to do with gender or race because of the way in which our culture will demonize anybody who expresses opinions that differ from the mainstream media, mm-hmm. and the way the culture is shifting, versus saying there are principles that are true regardless of if a white male says it or not.
Right.
There are principles that are true regardless of the color or the gender of the person saying those things. And we have so much happening in our culture that's completely things that are completely off the radar of what we would even thought 20 years ago could happen.
Right. Yeah.
The whole concept of pronouns. There's a friend of mine who has to place on his email signature, mm-hmm. for the work he has to place his pronouns or he will be fired.
Wow.
And he's going to choose to be fired because he refuses to mm-hmm. put his pronouns in. Who would have even grasp the concept of having to name your pronouns?
Goodness sakes, yeah.
That, to me, my brain just hurts thinking about this kind of stuff.
Sure.
And I think men have to be men here and have to lead, mm-hmm. and have to step up. And that's true of women too, with regard to this issue.
Yeah.
Because a lot of this is hurting. If you think about it, a lot of what's happening in our culture is hurting women.
Oh, absolutely. Without a doubt.
They're doing it under the guise of women's rights,
right.
But there are things that hurt women. When you have a man who was born with penis, who is now competing in Olympic sports with women because he's identified as a woman now, yet has all of the testosterone and the benefits of the physical male, and he's whooping the women in sports, and yet everybody's supposed to just go along and go, yeah, that's just, what's that doing? It's hurting the women.
Absolutely.
It's not protecting women. It's not helping women's rights. It's hurting women. When you have gender neutral everything, bathrooms, and you have a place where literally you can just say, I identify as a woman now, I can walk into the woman's bathroom. What have you just done? You have just victimized every woman who needs privacy when she goes to the bathroom.
Right.
And it's just amazing to me how our culture today thinks they're protecting women or fighting for women, when actually a lot of the decisions they're making are undermining the safety and rights of our women. And so men need to stand up and begin to call a spade and say what's true is true and what's wrong is wrong, and protect our women.